Attila the Hun, I came here to conquer. Lanes bring the beef, I tell them no donker. They wanna play games, I shock them like Blanca. They still rudimentary, I'm tough like Tonka. And let me get this off my chest. I'm hearing going nowhere, so haters take a rest. Ain't nothing handed, just working hard, sweating. You can take that to the bank. I know I did bet.
What's good, everyone? It's your boy Chomu, aka Tempest, your friendly neighborhood storm. And I can probably guess that you're noticing the introduction. If you've been here for a while, you know that that means Eye of the Storm. If you're new here, Eye of the Storm is when I take a pointed subject or two and I kind of just give some insight on it. A lot of times it's based around gaming or fighting games, but usually it also can just apply to life in general. And I'm gonna revisit a lot of subjects that I did before, especially because we got new people here, and a lot of times people don't like going back and checking old stuff. Is what it is. So before we even go into some of these subjects, I need to tackle kind of a big one. This one is about refocusing your mental energy and how you approach what you do. And what I mean by that is a lot of us get so focused on what the quote unquote best option or most optimal option is that we don't realize that that's not always the best option in the situation. And the reason being is because I believe that us having access to the information that we do, that we kind of didn't back in the day, allows everybody to see what the best option is. It's pretty easy to see that nowadays, right? You know, you can go to YouTube, you can go to Reddit, Twitter, whatever, and it'll be like, I found this route to do this, whether it's speedrunning, fighting games, or whatever, right? And it's like, oh my God, that's so amazing. And then, you know, people will go practice it and they'll be like, oh, I can do this really cool thing now. And now I just got to figure out how to use it. You know, they may figure out how to use it, or they'll watch, you know, their favorite player figure out how to use it, and then they'll do it, and they'll watch other people and be like, oh, well, you could have did this and it would have done so much damage, or it would have gotten you through this so much quicker, so on and so forth, right? I get that. And a lot of times you might be right, and there are other times kind of might be wrong. And this is where the whole quote unquote backseat gaming thing comes into play. And I have a whole other video on that I plan on doing, but that's a whole nother thing. The whole point of the matter is a lot of people start to feel this pressure or this obsession with doing the most optimal thing no matter what they're doing. And sometimes they forget that doing the most basic fundamental thing is always going to be an option, and sometimes it's literally the best option.
Wow.
Instead of trying to do this super fancy thing that's quote unquote optimal, but you run the risk of screwing it up or having some outside factor screw it up, aka we're in the age of internet, so input lag, internet lag, or whatever other factors that may happen to come along. You just don't know. And then all of a sudden it's like rage happens, whether you're expecting it or not, and whether it's extreme or it's minimal, it doesn't matter. There's all these common factors that kind of compile, and it affects people's mentality. And a lot of times people don't realize that what they're doing is they're handicapping themselves when it comes to their learning. You'll get somebody that's like, I'm trying to figure out how to punish in this situation, right? I'm playing against this character and I can't do what I need to do and I want to punish, and somebody goes, well, how about you do this? And they're like, well, if I do that, then I have to return to neutral. And you're stopping and you're thinking, what's wrong with that?
Yes! But
to the person that has this mentality of, hey, we need to do everything uber optimal, returning to neutral is a bad thing, which is kind of weird, especially if you're playing a game where, you know, using your other buttons and not having to blow somebody up with a full life combo is a thing. Like, it's not necessarily the normal. It's like, hey, most of these games do require you to play a little bit of neutral, just a little bit, you know, before you can get that combo. So it's like returning to neutral isn't bad. Damage is damage. I say it. I have plenty of other friends that say it. You know, shout outs to Aria Mikado, Coach Steve, a few others. It's like, you can't be afraid to do other options that aren't your fancy bombos. You know what I mean? Like, come on, bro. Like, it's okay. It's a game. There's infinite possibilities. And that is one of the most beautiful thing, especially about fighting games, but not just fighting games, shooters, RTSs, and other things. Like, you have decisions that you make. What happens to make things that unique is everybody has a different decision-making process. And with the same information, you have so many different decisions that can be made. And depending on the two people, that situation can bear fruit to some crazy moments, which is why we get what we get. That's why fighting games are a beautiful thing. That's why video games in general are a beautiful thing. That's why we love to watch speedrunners. That's why sometimes we love to watch long plays. That's why sometimes we even love to watch people struggle with their first time playing video game. I'm gonna give you guys an example before we kind of wrap things up. One of the greatest players to ever play basketball, one that people tend to not remember to bring up a lot, but they will when you bring the name up, is Larry Bird. Larry Bird was not the flashiest player, but Larry Bird is a player that anybody that's ever played with him or shared the court with him will tell you he was one of the scariest people to be out there with. Why? Because he would talk trash to you, and anything he said would happen. And people could never understand why, because again, he wasn't the fastest, he wasn't the strongest, but he was accurate and he was scary. He'd be like, all right, young man, look, in about 10 seconds, I'm gonna do this. You're gonna try and go this way. I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna make my shot from right over there. And he pointed out, and it would happen exactly the way that he said it was going to happen. And do you know why? Because Larry Bird had a huge grasp on his fundamentals. And a lot of players that do that are very scary. Fundamentals are very important. Keeping your brain open is very important. Listening to others, very important. So just remember, don't close off your brain. Make sure to keep your mentality open, keep it straight, and remember, sometimes the best option isn't always the best option. Oh, that's it. And trust me, we're gonna do more of these. I'll let you guys know. You guys can also even request subjects as well. But you know what I say, be safe, take care of each other, press buttons, and catch you on the flip side.